Carolita Oliveros, an international business consultant and attorney serving wealthy clients all over the world. Carolita's expertise includes international business, e-commerce, intellectual property protection, real estate investments, and social entrepreneurship. And that's just to start with. As an author and speaker, she co-authored and presented the Rich Dad Personal Finance course for Robert Kiyosaki. She's been a faculty instructor in the McGuire Entrepreneurship Program at the University of Arizona and for the Entrepreneurship Program at Thunderbird American Graduate School of International Management. Carolita was a faculty member for the Best Brilliant Ideas Business Plan Contest 2010-2011, and she's been a recipient of the United States Department of Commerce Award for Business Leader of the Year. Today, Carolita will be talking about 11 future trends and the enormous potential they hold for entrepreneurs and investors who are seeking new pathways to grow wealth. So members, I encourage you to listen carefully, take notes, and enjoy the webinar. Over to you, Carolita. Hello, Carolita. We don't yet hear you. Uh-oh. We thought we'd solved the technical problem. Hello, Carolita. Not yet.
John? John, can you hear me?
Yes, Carolita, I can hear you. Yes, we're ready to rock and roll. Off you go. Carolita, the stage is yours.
I'm having so much difficulty hearing you.
We can hear you. Just go ahead.
John, I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Hi, John. Oh, okay, because I can't hear you. That's what I was worried about. Okay, that's fine. I'll proceed on. Thank you. Bye. Well, hello everyone, and I do apologize for all of the technical difficulties on my end of the webinar. I have no idea what's going on with my service provider, but I'm just very, very happy to be here, and I'm so very pleased that you were willing and able to stay in tune here for us to continue on with the webinar. So let's proceed. I know you're used to seeing my Think Big picture, because today we're going to be really looking at not just thinking big, but we're really going to be focusing on the Think X, be talking about the big trends in exponential and disruptive technologies. When we last talked about projects, which was in August, because as you remember, Bill Rowell and I had a wonderful conversation on the webinar last time in September, talking about trends, and I wanted to follow along with that today. So you are going to look at your list of skills and interests and your areas of expertise and prioritize your list from the most important to your least important, so that you can then do some market research on how you can market your skills effectively to generate new sources of income. And your millionaire strategy, of course, is to list your skills, your interest, and your areas of expertise, do your research, focus on one market strategy, and then acquire the information and the tools that you need. Well, we've talked about exponential technologies on this webinar since the beginning of 2016. I started off the new year introducing you to a number of new exponential technologies and disruptive technologies. And as you know, if it's disruptive, that means that it takes you in a different direction than where we've always been. So, for example, one of the examples that I used was Uber. You know, we've had taxi cabs for decades and decades. Well, Uber is a disruptive technology on taxi cabs. Just like, for example, Amazon is a disruptive technology on traditional bookstores. So that's what we mean by disruptive technologies. So what are the top disruptive technologies emerging for the future? Bill Rowell and I looked at that a little bit last month, and we're going to look at some specific examples this time. And I particularly want to focus in on one example, which we will talk about in just a minute. But you know that self-driving cars, self-driving trucks, self-driving buses, I mean, this is the latest in how to drive a car. Because basically, the person behind the wheel no longer has control over the car. And in some instances, for example, some trucks and some buses, there aren't even any people sitting behind the wheel. So that's really exponential technology. And I think that you're going to see that that's where we're going more and more. We're going to go back through some of these later. Probably, if we don't touch on them this month, we'll look at them in more depth in December and close out the year with where we're going to go for the future. Drones and flying cars. That's really at the top of everybody's conversation list these days, because now we see drones in so many areas of our lives. You know, earlier in the year it was, and at the end of last year, 2015, it was a matter of Amazon and other companies, Alibaba in China, for example, talking about using drones for delivery of products. But that's no longer a conversation. That's now a reality. We've also got some prototypes of flying cars. Larry Page at Google has had a couple of labs, quote, secret labs, unquote, along with others who have been developing flying cars now for at least a decade. And now all of a sudden, those are starting to come out into the everyday press. So that's another type of exponential technology. We are all now sort of getting used to the conversation about artificial intelligence and robotics. And again, this is showing up in our daily lives in so many different areas. It's showing up in medicine, for example. It's showing up in just doing ordinary chores around the house. You know, there are robots that will literally, that you can buy now for pretty reasonable prices that will allow you to have them do housework or have them do different chores that you assign to them. Or they can even do homework with your children. Robots can do all kinds of things. Artificial intelligence is beating people at computer games. So we're seeing this not just in a small way, but now in a much larger way, and it's really starting to develop in so many areas where we never expected it. I'll give you one example that's near and dear to my heart because it deals with my profession, and that is that we're now seeing a lot of large law firms, not small law firms, because I think at this point the technology is still too expensive for smaller and medium-sized law firms to be able to afford it or to have the case economical to buy it. But the very large law firms are now starting to use artificial intelligence to review thousands and thousands of documents, for example, because artificial intelligence can go through and analyze documents at a faster pace, a greatly enhanced pace than a human being can. So going through these huge files of documents on an anti-monopoly case, for example, where you may have actually an entire warehouse of documents that have to be reviewed, those can all be done now by artificial intelligence. So it's far more efficient. The artificial intelligence vehicle picks up nuances in the cases sometimes people miss. So this is just one example of how in the field of law I'm now seeing artificial intelligence and robotics in various different forms used in law firms. Does that mean that someday a robot will show up in court to litigate a case? Well, I don't know, but I think all things are possible, so I wouldn't exclude the possibility. You know, and maybe in the future that will in fact happen. We've already got a robot called Watson, developed by, well, Watson actually has been around quite some time. We've now got about 5 or 6 other robots that do many other things in addition to Watson. And, you know, at some point I fully expect that science being what it is, and scientists having the creative and the inquisitive minds that they do, will continue to research and develop until they've got a robot that can actually duplicate a human being in a court of law. I don't exclude that from the field of possibility. Pocket supercomputers for everyone. Gosh, 10 years ago, who would have thought that you'd be walking around with a cell phone in your pocket that's the same as a supercomputer? 10 years ago, we didn't even have cell phones that were small enough to put into your pocket. So we've come a long way, but the capability now of cell phones, I mean, cell phones come equipped with cameras and with all kinds of other technologies. Apps alone are a creation that we never expected. I mean, who would have thought that you'd be having millions of jobs, literally, for app developers and app designers? I mean, that's a phenomenon that I would not have predicted. And now, your phone operates like a supercomputer does. You can do almost anything with it. The other interesting thing about cell phones in general and the whole field of technology involving cell phones and the internet transmission is that we now have the ability, because of all the birds in the sky, if you want to call them that. I mean, some of them are actual airplane-looking vehicles. Some of them are balloons. It depends on which company developed the technology. But the whole process, and I've talked about this a number of times this year actually in various webinars, is you want to be able to deliver internet worldwide. Well, we're now at that stage. We now can do that. And because we have drones, not only can we deliver internet full-time everywhere, but we can also incorporate this into medicine, for example, and you'll see medicine as one of the trends that's going to come up in just a minute. But we can also incorporate that into medicine and deliver medical supplies into remote areas that heretofore we couldn't even get a truck into to deliver anything in terms of medical supplies or food, for that matter, or anything else that needed to be for disaster relief or whatever it happened to be. So the world is becoming a much smaller place. Of course, one of my favorite topics and one of my favorite trends is the cryptocurrency area. Now, this we're going to talk about again at the end of this review of what the trends are, because as Swiss Gold Global members, I'm sure that this is a hot topic on your lips right now because of the 2.0 platform that's being launched at the end of this week. Very exciting, very interesting technology. I've read so many articles that say that blockchain technology is truly the wave of the future. And cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin we've had around for quite some time, since 2009. We've now got a number of other cryptocurrencies. We'll talk about this in more depth in just a few minutes. So here's our innovations in medicine and computerized medicine. Now you can wear a bracelet on your arm. You can put a headband around your head, an earpiece in your ear, a monitor on around your waist. I mean, you can just about monitor anything within your body now because of computerized medicine and because of all of the innovations in medicine that have taken place. For those of you who are old enough to be Star Trekkies and remember the Star Trek series, when Scotty and Dr. Bones, Scotty's talking into computers, which we thought would never happen. We thought that was really science fiction. And now, of course, all of us talk into computers, and we talk into our phones. I mean, I don't usually type out a text anymore because I've got an app on my phone called Dragon, and I just hit Dragon, and I talk into the phone, and it types out my message and sends off my text. So I don't have to type it out anymore. The same thing is true with medicine. If you remember, Dr. Bones in Star Trek used to scan the body, and it would tell you, or it would tell him exactly what was wrong with the person that he was working with. Well, we can now do just about the same thing. Probably within the next year, maybe 2 years, I think we will have a complete technology that allows us to do that because medical technology is moving so rapidly. But again, because of the internet technology that is now available, because we are able to beam internet into remote regions and drop off supplies with drones and so forth, people who were never able to receive any of this information in the past are now coming up to speed at a really quick rate. Energy, I know all of us agree, is probably one of the most important trends on the horizon. We really need clean energy. We talk about it a lot. We talk about the greenhouse effect. We talk about the change in weather patterns and melting ice packs and glaciers and so forth. We need energy all over the world. I mean, it's a reality. We have to have energy everywhere in order to help people that have never been able to receive just the things that you and I consider to be standard, ordinary, everyday advantages or benefits. And yet there are still people in this world who don't have access to electricity. They don't have access to clean water because they can't drill for it. They don't have pumps to pump clean water out of the ground. The water on surface level is polluted. So it's really important to have clean energy. The health of the world depends upon it. Virtual reality and augmented reality. You know, that's another Star Trek kind of technology, and certainly not just Star Trek, but Star Wars as well. Holograms and so forth. You used to watch Star Trek, at least I did when I was a little kid, and they would go into a whole place on the spaceship that had a virtual reality, all kinds of virtual realities. You got to choose which one you wanted. You could go sit in the sand on the beach, or you could go to the mountains, or you could go to a party. I mean, you had infinite numbers of opportunities and possibilities of different realities. Well, now we can experience very much the same thing. And we're not only using virtual reality and augmented reality in terms of computer games and different types of reading formats and so forth, but we're also using it in medicine. So here's another way that this type of disruptive technology is now merging with all of these innovations in medicine, because now I just read an article that you have the ability to help people who've had limbs amputated, for example, to help them feel their legs or to help them feel their arms, to help them move them, to learn how to move them. So all of this is being incorporated together, which is quite miraculous, actually. When I think about it from my perspective, a lot of you didn't have to deal with the old way of doing things because you're younger and you came up in a reality and in a set of circumstances where technology was already being developed. But it's really science fiction come to life in many ways for me, because I grew up at a time when it really was science fiction. So these are the kinds of things now that are available not only in industrialized countries, but in emerging markets as well. And the interesting thing about that is that the emerging markets are embracing all of these trends at a much greater level, a much more in-depth level, much more readily, and the venture capital money seems to be pouring into these areas because they are emerging markets and because they don't have the bureaucracy that some of the highly developed countries do have, because they've been around for a lot longer, they've been industrialized for a lot longer, and so bureaucracies have built up over time. That's not necessarily true in all of the emerging markets. So the rapid growth of all of these trends and all of these exponential technologies is happening so much faster in those markets. So they're catching up so much more quickly than it took all of the industrialized nations to get to this point. It's really quite interesting to take a step back and look at the big picture. You know, that's why I keep saying to you at the beginning of every one of my webinars, think big, think exponentially, think strategically. Because when I think back, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, when I was in the corporate world, inside large multinational corporations, at that point in time, when we did a patent for a new technology that the company had developed that we wanted to introduce to the marketplace, it would take anywhere from 18 months to 3 years to get that patent through the patent office to apply on a worldwide basis to the markets that we were going to target internationally, as well as our domestic market. So we were looking at anywhere, if you include international, anywhere from 18 months to 5 years, or maybe 6 years, depending on the country. Now, it's almost expect to get a patent through the patent office in 9 months or less. The patent laws have changed. Patent law now is more harmonized. The United States changed its patent law several years ago to become more harmonized with patent law in Europe, for example. So all of these things are changing to bring about the technologies that are being developed in a much faster way. And of course, one of those ways is that now high-quality online education can be available for everyone everywhere. In some places, it is available for everyone in that particular location. And as I said, the more that we are able to reach remote areas with the internet, whether it's on your phone or on a tablet or on a computer, a laptop or a desktop, it doesn't really make any difference, because now you can get online education, anybody, and a lot of it is free. Major universities in the United States, for example, and I know it's happening in other countries as well, have now got free online education courses in a huge array of areas, a huge array of topics that you don't have to pay for. In August, I believe it was, I talked about online universities like Udemy and online universities from Stanford, for example, or MIT or Harvard, online universities in Europe and other countries, all offering classes online for students who either could afford to pay for certain classes or who take advantage of the free online courses. So education now, when we say that education can be available for everyone everywhere, it's now becoming a reality. It's not just rhetoric that people talk about. It's now actually happening. And we're not talking about little classes on how to make crafts and that kind of thing. You know, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that, because I take those myself. You know, when you have a talent in some area, then you want, and it's an art area, you want to find a course that's going to help you expand that talent. But in order to receive higher education, you also need to be able to take online classes in mathematics and English literature, physics. So all of this is now becoming available. One of my favorite topics is indoor farming. Hydroponics has been around for a number of decades. The University of Arizona, which is located in the city where I live, has a huge hydroponics farm right here in the city. And one of the real pleasures of my life is getting to the hydroponics farm on the days when they hold open markets so that I can buy fresh picked tomatoes and cucumbers and all kinds of vegetables that are grown by the University of Arizona and their hydroponics farm. Fresh, organic, absolutely delicious vegetables of all kinds, lettuce, everything you can imagine. Well, there's a limitation to that, obviously, when you're depending on acres and acres of ground in order to be able to farm. One of the areas right now that's really a quote hot topic in international is buying farmland in foreign countries that still have a great deal of it. In many countries, their new farmland is not available because much of the farmland is already being farmed, it's already owned. So one of the big things to do is to buy farmland in another country. Well, at some point you've got to start looking at what can we do with new technology so that we can increase food productivity without having to increase the number of acres we use to grow that food. They've been experimenting for a number of years now, and I'm not sure exactly how many, but it's been at least a decade, maybe longer than that, with indoor farming. But you had to have special kind of lighting because it has to be daylight lighting if it's going to be indoors, because obviously sunlight produces photosynthesis in plants and provides vitamins and all kinds of things to plants and to the soil. So how do you reproduce that in a building that's many, many stories high? And they've actually got these huge buildings now in New York City, for example, where they're doing a lot of the indoor farming. Well, the technology is now becoming available, and the food that's being produced is just like the food from the hydroponics farm at the University of Arizona Agriculture Center over here in my city. It's fresh, it's organic, it's grown with all of the nutrients and all of the vitamins and the minerals that you need for the ground. It's got special lighting that reproduces sunlight so the plants can actually go through the photosynthesis process. And this is going to be the wave of the future in a much bigger way. I mean, it's already happening now to a limited extent. I know that it's also happening in, I'm looking at a screen that says the connection with GoToWebinar server has been lost. Please check your network connection. I'm not sure what that means. It looks like we may have a problem here.
Carolita is all good.
John, are you still there? Or is Claudia, are you there?
I'm here. We can hear you perfectly.
Can you hear me okay? Am I still on? Because
Yes.
maybe it's back up. I'll continue on. Can you hear me?
You're still here. You can hear you loud and clearly. Yes, we can.
I'm going to assume that you can hear me just fine.
Yes, we can.
Space companies, I know, are interesting to everybody. SpaceX, which is owned by Elon Musk, Richard Branson and Virgin has developed a space company. We've got private space companies now that are doing the work of what we used to assume governments would do in terms of developing space technologies and developing spaceships that go to other countries, other planets, go into deep space, monitor what's going on with asteroids, fly to the moon and collect samples so that we can understand what the moon is really made out of, go to Mars and collect samples so we can really understand what Mars is made out of and whether or not there's really water on Mars, etc. A lot of that is being done right here at the University of Arizona because they developed a lot of that technology that's now used in the land rover on Mars and so forth. We literally, within your lifetimes for sure, will be able to fly to outer space. We already have satellites and we already have spaceships where people have stayed for months and months at a time. Now we've got one up there where people have been up there for a number of years. So this kind of technology is already available. It just needs to be expanded. And private companies are now picking up the gauntlet for that and moving forward. Okay, sorry about that. We were stuck there for a minute. Now my favorite subject. Let's talk about cryptocurrencies and why diversification is the key. Why do you want cryptocurrencies? Why in the world would you want to diversify into cryptocurrencies? It's a strategy that everyone needs to look at. You can access cryptocurrencies from anywhere at any time. That's one of the big advantages of having a cryptocurrency. You don't have to carry it around in your pocket. You don't have to worry about having a big bulge in your pocket or having, a lot of bills in your wallet because it's accessible from anywhere. The other thing that I think is really important, because I've seen this happen, it's actually happened to clients of mine, especially clients who wanted to carry gold or silver from one country to another. the problem that we run into is that even though you comply with all of the laws and you fill out all of the correct forms and you do all of the disclosures, you run the risk of having your precious metals or your diamonds or whatever it is confiscated by the airport authorities. You don't run that risk with a cryptocurrency because they don't even know you've got it. Also, there's no limit on the amount that you can carry. For example, let's talk about flying from one country to another. Last month I came back, I went to Bermuda to a conference and I came back again. I had to fill out a form on the plane that said that I was not carrying more than 10,000 US dollars with me. And if I was carrying more than 10,000 US dollars, then I had to declare that to customs. When I came back, I had to do the same thing. Not only declare the actual dollars that I had with me, but also declare anything that I had bought in Bermuda and what the value of that was, because if it went over $10,000, then I had to declare customs on that. I'm going to Panama in another 2 weeks. Same thing will be true. I'll again have to go through the same set of forms declaring that I do not have more than $10,000 with me. If you are using cryptocurrency, this is not an issue. When cryptocurrencies first came out in 2009, 2010, when I was counseling clients and doing seminars and webinars, I used to laugh and say, you know, don't worry about the $10,000 limit anymore. Carry a flash drive with you and put your Bitcoin on your flash drive. That was before Bitcoin wallets became so sophisticated. You could just store it right on a flash drive and put it in your pocket and carry it with you. And TSA or whoever the authority was at the checkpoint didn't know that you had any currency over 10,000 with you. You can convert cryptocurrency into any currency, whether it's US dollars, whether it's currency from your local country, New Zealand dollars, Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, to be British pounds, it doesn't make any difference. You can convert that into your local currency. You can also, as we heard both Bill Rao and Claudia Eifert say on our webinars to talk about the 2.0 platform and the new launch that's coming up, we also heard that you can convert it into gold and silver. How ideal can that be? That's wonderful. You can buy products and services anywhere that will accept it. And more and more and more businesses, stores, both online stores as well as brick and mortar stores, are now accepting cryptocurrencies of various kinds. Probably the most important thing is you don't have to worry about bank failures. You don't have to worry about a government confiscating the money out of your bank account for a bail-in because a bank is in failure mode. And you don't have to worry about negative interest rates with your cryptocurrency. It doesn't operate in any of those areas. So you don't have to be concerned about any of those things, which is another really important reason why you want to take a look at diversifying your portfolio, not only into gold and silver and other types of hard assets, but also into cryptocurrencies. Because we are now a global economy, we really need to learn to think differently. It's not an option anymore. We really have to learn to think differently. You know, history has shown us, and I've talked a number of times over the last few months, and I think Bill and I talked about it again last month on our call together. One of the big worries is that with all of this exponential technology that's disrupting technologies that are near and dear to us, we've known them for all our lives, and now they're going away. And they're taking jobs with them. I don't deny that every time technology changes, that some jobs are eliminated. But that has been true throughout history. I mean, cars replaced the horse and buggy. Trains replaced cars and all kinds of things. It was faster and easier to get a lot of places on trains. And then we had planes, airplanes. We've got computers. You know, it's almost impossible to find an old typewriter anymore. You'd better hope that somebody is providing you with a fillable PDF online, because you won't be able to type it out if not, because there are no more typewriters. So, I mean, there have always been new technologies coming down the pike. They've always replaced jobs. But here's the key. They create new and better jobs to replace the ones that were eliminated. So we need to create those jobs, and we need to train people to live in an exponential world. The emerging countries that are coming online with all of this new exponential and disruptive tech, because it's not disruptive to them. They didn't have it probably, if at all, in the past. So it's all new technology to them. It's those of us who have had the old technologies that are now being disrupted that are worried about how it's replacing jobs and how it's putting people out of work. But we want to create new jobs. We want to train people to live in an exponential world, because at the end of the day, exponential and disruptive technologies are here to stay. They are with us. And when you take a look at this overall picture of what the new trends are, and we've talked about how you can utilize those trends to benefit your own lives, to benefit your families, and to upgrade your skills and your talents to higher and higher skill levels with new and to diversify, to use those technologies to build your wealth, to use cryptocurrency to diversify your gold and silver portfolio, and to diversify using gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies to diversify stocks and bonds or whatever else it is that you're investing in. So diversification is really the key. And I want to leave you with that for the time being, because in December we'll take another look at how we're going to end the year, where we are in terms of the technologies and the trends and how that's impacting us. By that time, we'll all have a chance to get on board with the 2.0 platform and the Bitcoin accounts and so forth. I'm going to be so excited to be talking to you in December, because when we start looking at how that's going to enrich our lives and enhance our ability to grow our wealth, we are going to be growing our wealth exponentially in the coming days, in the coming months. So thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope all of this got recorded and that you will take the opportunity to go into your back office and re-listen to it. I know that we've had a number of technology glitches on this call today, but we'll get that sorted out, and hopefully you've been able to hear all of the webinar and look at all of the slides. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the fact that so many of you are in foreign locations from me, and it's very late at night or in the wee hours of the morning, and I appreciate totally that you've hung on and stayed with us on this webinar call. Thanks again, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you in December.